I just ordered a book from Amazon, and they sent me two. Cool, I guess. I have two of the same book. Goals. Anyway, hi guys, welcome back to another video. So I was just sitting and waiting for videos to process. I'm currently in a world called Cat Cafe, by the way, getting the vibes whilst I can't use my other avatar. But I was just sitting and watching a video process when I kind of had this obscure show from my childhood pop into my head. Now this video is probably going to like appeal more to the people from England because I'm going to be talking about British TV shows, but I just kind of want to go off on a tangent talking about all the things that I used to come home from school and watch. I think that would be kind of a fun topic. So the video the series that came to my head when I was like waiting for the video was called My Parents Are Aliens. It's about these aliens who crash land on Earth. Their spaceship turns into a house and they adopt kids to try and blend in. They end up like actually liking the kids, and then when the spaceship is fixed they don't want to leave, and then they end up staying with the kids. But you know, it's all about these wacky hijinks of the aliens not knowing how to be human and the kids raising the aliens. You got Brian, your even wackier dad because he's an alien, doesn't know what he's doing, and the mom who is like cooking all these crazy meals like gummy bears for breakfast, has no idea how to be a mom. That was like one of the shows that I watched the most when I came home from school because it would just always be one that was mostly on CITV. So, CITV. You don't get those anymore. But anyway, CITV, that was like a show that I would watch on there. A show that I also have coming to my mind now is The Worst Witch. I think that got actually like a reboot on Netflix. Possible, well, not on Netflix, but it was like it got a reboot and then it was put on Netflix. But The Worst Witch, basically about a human girl, you know, the Harry Potter era. Basically about this not human girl, like she's like her family. She is the first witch of her generation. Don't really want to spoil it, but it turns out she's not the first witch of her generation. So she's basically weird kid going into like a school of witches, and she gets bullied because she doesn't know what she's doing, and like trying to make the magics happen and hijinks. I remember I don't remember her name, but there was this teacher who was like really angry. She was like all dressed in black. She was like an angry witch, and then she turns out to be not that bad. There was I keep wanting to say McGonagall, but that is not Harry Potter. And there was like the head witch, whose name I cannot remember either. But yeah, she was like a headmistress. Her name, it was all about like Mildred, the main witch, just trying to like navigate school and not get expelled, and then like saving the day. Like generic Harry Potter on a budget. Like it was always kind of funny to see them sit on these broomsticks and just kind of like green screen levitate off into the distance with, and then like the cheesy magic special effects. The 90s on a budget. It was a time. Literally all the kids would either just be running around a forest or like in one classroom, because I mean, CBBC has a budget, but it's not like that crazy of a budget, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so what other obscure British TV shows? Oh, Horrible Histories. I actually didn't watch that too much because it would like, it was a gross out show, and of course, I was like, not sensitive, but I was like, I didn't like the gore and stuff when I was a kid. It took me a long time to actually stop watching Disney movies and get into like more realistic stuff. But you know, Horrible Histories was like a gross out show, so I never really watched it. But I remember as I got older, I did start watching it and I enjoyed it. Like I probably wouldn't now. It was like very obviously stupid child humor. But basically, you know, it would talk about, there's a lot of English history to learn, okay? Like, you got American history class, you guys got to learn like what, a few hundred years. In England, like our history classes are like, yo, so we got like a couple of thousand years, you're all gonna need to study up. So this show was basically from a book series, and it would you know, cover people from history and be like, there was like a rat host, and he'd be like talking about what the bubonic plague was, but trying to make light of it. And you know, it was a good place for learning, and I probably would have done well from that, because history was never my best subject, especially when I have to learn like thousands of years of it. Like, British history, man. It's a time. Yeah, so yeah, I kind of watched horrible histories. I also remember this show called Funny Bones, which was like aimed at really young children, so I never checked that out. But I have a memory of it, also based off a children's book. I remember too, as I was about the time I was checking out of CBBC, there was a show called, and CITV, there was a show called Horrid Henry, which was also based on a book. I just remember this kid screaming. I think he was basically a little turd, if you will, and he would scream throughout the whole thing. It's like, it's not fair! And then, yeah. That's my memory of that. What else have we got going on? Come on, British TV shows. I'm gonna think of more when I turn off the video. I always do. Trying to like not bring up stuff like obviously Arthur, because that's an American TV show. We're not covering that right now. And you know, stuff like Digimon and Pokemon, obviously, like duh, and all the Disney Channel stuff. I'm trying to cover the more obscure British English shows. Oh, they would always have those like game shows. I can't remember what it was called, but there was a game show where they would be in like a jungle setting. I think it was called Jungle Run. And they'd be in a jungle setting, and it was basically a mini game show where these kids would have to go on and solve puzzles and sweat. And you know, like exercise. Back when kids like had mobility and they could move and they didn't get out of breath walking down the hallway. Like, you know, kids could actually compete and win a Game Boy, like, come on now. Like, they actually had real good prizes back then too. You could win like a PS1, a Game Boy. Like, main prize would be a PS1 and a Game Boy, and then prize 2 would just be a Game Boy. And you get like a variety of games with it. Like, surprisingly good rewards for like a children's TV show. And it was surprisingly well made too. Like, it would be an actual jungle setting, and they would act like they'd be running from like place to place across the jungle, you know, like, let's go to the next one, kids. Really, they just ran off the set and then probably finished recording for an hour and then just ran back on the set. All right, kids, let's keep going. You know? But you know, you don't really think about it as a kid. There was immersion. I remember that there was this really hard, you know, they have the build up, and then at the end they have like the really hard game that a lot of kids don't, like, if you get the golden monkey, you would win, like, all the kids would win a Game Boy. Or, you know, in this particular game, actually, yeah, it was the golden monkey, and then there was the silver monkey, which was like the sub prize. And you had to solve all these puzzles in a matter of time. And it was like crazy to watch thinking back on it. And a lot of these kids, you'd feel kind of bad because they wouldn't really make it. They'd make it to like the silver monkey. And the worst part is if like they would have a timer, and if the timer was expiring, you basically grabbed, like, the kids would run out and grab like the silver and the bronze or whatever. But if you got like left behind in the cave when it closed shut, they would just be like, well, that kid's trapped in there forever, and you know that they didn't go home with a Game Boy, so that kind of sucks. But the kids who made it out, I'd be that kid, like, running and just like grabbing onto the kid in front of me's shirt and like pulling them back and yeeting myself forward, getting that momentum, grabbing the monkey on the way. No, I wouldn't actually be that bad. I wouldn't be that bad. I wouldn't be pulling up the. Can you imagine like the producer's reaction to that? Like, well, that was very poor sport. You don't get a Game Boy. This kid just like rugby tackling. I'm getting the Game Boy, boys. The struggles. Oh no, I would not make good. And there was a lot of barely a few, man, and there was like kids game shows, actually, thinking about it. Can't really remember them all, but I do have a vague can't remember them, but I can remember them, if that makes sense. What other weird shows did we have? Oh, Wishbone. I never really caught that. It was a show about a dog that was telling stories, but he would be the main character. So it would be like stories from history. So like he's talking about like King Henry, I think it was, and then he would be King Henry or a character that is with King Henry, or he'd be like a support character that helped the main character of the story achieve, you know, their happy ending, so to speak. I never really caught it, but I do remember that. Like, Wishbone was always also one of the shows that I wanted to watch, but it was always on at weird times, so I never really caught it. Animals of Farthingwood! Animals of Farthingwood! Oh my god! I struggled to watch that as a child, too. If you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it, because honestly, if you guys can find it, I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube, but it is a really good series. Basically, it's about these animals. Their habitat's being destroyed by the man, and they're trying to escape to this, like, safe place. But there's a lot, like, this is a children's show aimed at, like, 10-year-olds, okay? There is a lot of death. It's like Watership Down. That movie, going into it, you're like, ooh, happy little animated bunny rabbits, and then murder. Like, not the CGI one. The CGI one was kind of I'm talking about the animated version. Like, the animated version of Watership Down is dark, and Animals of Farthingwood is not as dark, but it goes to some dark places, and you start out with this group of animals, and not all of them are gonna make it. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. But I do remember actually going and watching that back when I was a little older and, like, appreciating it more and enjoying that. Again, I really want people to watch that because it was good, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but just know that I watched it and I enjoyed it. It kind of creeped me out as a kid, even before I was, like, aware that there were animal deaths. I think in the episodes I did watch, like, nothing really died, or I never really processed it, but I was just never really invested in it when it was, like, at its peak. But that was a crazy show. Like, some of the stuff they allowed on television in the 90s and the British, the things they allowed 10-year-olds to watch back then, and then today it's like you go on Disney Plus and they're like, oh, this show contains, like, toilet humor. Be warned. Like, bro, we were straight watching animals get murdered, and we're mostly fine. We're not stuck watching. We escaped TikTok. I think we all know that that's the real cancer in social media in general. It's not about the stuff we're watching on television, that's for sure. Okay, so what other... Oh, Sooty and Sweep. We gotta talk about Sooty and Sweep. That was, like, a puppet show for, like, really little kids. That was literally my, like, 5-year-old childhood. Like, I loved Sooty and Sweep. Basically, there was, like, a dog. It was, like, a black dog with, like, black ears. It was a gray dog with black ears, and he would talk with a squeak. And so it'd be like, there was a human guy there called Matthew, and he was often the puppeteer. Like, he'd be talking to the puppets and stuff and operating Sooty the bear. The bear was, like, yellow, Sooty was the bear, it was yellow with black ears, and the way Sooty began is, I believe that someone's mom just had this, like, yellow bear and then just, like, painted the ears black, and thus Sooty was born. Anyway, so Sweep would talk in squeaker voice, and then the Matthew guy would kind of roughly translate what he said, and there was Sue as well, who was like the only puppet who could talk, because Sooty didn't talk, the bear, you know, he'd like do the whisper in the ear thing, like, and then that was his method of talking. And they would have, like, guest show appearances, and I remember watching them as a kid and finding those segments really boring. It was like, oh, here's this band that's, like, ultra popular that literally everybody knew, and I'm, like, my 4-year-old self, like, I don't know these people. Can I get back to the funny dancing puppets or her? I have this one memory of this scene where they're, like, blowing bubbles and balloons, and then there's this song, and they're like, bubbles and balloons, who could ask for anything more? Bubbles and balloons, something, 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 something. It's just like, oh god, yeah, it was aimed at very young children, okay, but even then, my dad would watch it with us, and he would be laughing and enjoying it too. So, you know, it was one of those shows where it was aimed at kids, but, you know, pretty much anyone could enjoy it. Like, this crazy, wacky stuff going on. Like, it was all, like, so British. Like, that show, I remember being a kid, and there's this one scene where Sweet doesn't want to eat his, greens. So they tell him, like, if you eat your jumping beans, it will, like, make you jump more. And then, like, after that, Sweep eats his jumping beans, and he's just going around the house jumping around. And then Sooty's upstairs just, like, flicking a ruler against a piece of wood. So it's going... It's so stupid. It makes me laugh even now. Just, God, that show, Sooty and Sweet, this is a special place in my heart. It really did. That was like my number one favorite show as a kid, I think. And of course they did a reboot and completely killed it. But we won't talk about that. But what will we talk about? I'm pretty sure there's so many, obviously, that I'm not gonna remember. Paddington, like the old Paddington before the reboot, again aimed at like really young children. The animated, like I briefly remember Count Duckula. That show was so weird. Like it was basically Count Dracula, but it was a duck, and he didn't drink blood. He like wanted tomato juice. I remember there being like creepy evil vegetables, and there's this weird duck nanny. Like it was so weird. I have a feeling that might have not been like an English show. It might have been from like, you know, across the pond from that area. It could have been an English show. I don't know. I just remember it being super weird and not really catching too much of that. But we had a VHS tape of like an episode or something, and I just remember watching that and thinking it was super weird. I think I'll end the video here. Like, if I think of more shows that I want to talk about, I'll probably just make another video, but for now, that's kind of all the ones that really jump to my mind and have like the strongest, that stuck with me the most, I suppose you could say. And I feel like it's gonna be a pretty long video, so I shouldn't really have it drag on too much longer. I always enjoyed no, I have to talk about something. Dick and Dom in the Bungalow. Like, every kid watched that. It was like a Saturday morning block where these two like adult men would hang out in an apartment with a bunch of children. Yes, and they would basically do mini games, make a mess, or points that they would earn depending on how many points. I think they would get prizes and stuff like that, or whoever won the mini games or something. Oh no, they would vote like the most popular house person or something like that. But yeah, and then they would play cartoons throughout it, you know, to pad it out, because it was like 3 hours, and it was basically just these two adult men just screwing around and, you know, throwing pies at each other. But I just remember loving it. Like, it was so fun. Like, just, it was all so childish, but it was so great. And I'm pretty sure like every kid watched that. It was like, it was the thing to watch on Saturday morning. If you didn't watch Dick and Dom in the Bungalow, you may as well just go living under a rock somewhere, because you weren't cool. Also, Ant and Dec were stolen from the children. They were on this show called it was a Saturday morning show. It was like, also Ant and Dec were stolen from us because they used to host a children's show in the morning. Like, I remember them wearing like there was this back when Pokemon was popular, they had these sweaters, and they were like knitted sweaters, and they had a Pikachu on them. I remember being jealous. I wanted one. And anyway, Ant and Dec would have these sweaters on, and they would do like a Pokemon rap, and then they would like hold the sweaters out, like pull the sweaters down, and just like go Pikachu, Pikachu, Pikachu. And then like a few months later, after doing that for probably about 2 years, they're like on adult television doing Saturday Night Live and I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, just like killing it in the circuit. But I always, just every time I saw them, I would just remember that scene because I had it recorded. Obviously I was recording an episode of Pokemon because that's what was about to come on, and they were doing the Pokemon rap. I probably still have it, let's be real, but I'm not going to go search it out, especially because I'm not even in the right country at the moment. But there was that. Ant and Deck were stolen from us, and a lot of people seem to remember that, which is crazy to me. This time, we're done editing the video. If I think of anything more that I just really have to talk about, just make another video. And if there's more shows that come to my mind, make another video. It's that simple. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about some shows that you maybe not have heard about. Or to the English people, I hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane. If you guys were watching any of these shows as a kid, please leave a comment and let me know that I'm not alone in my weirdness. Like, these are not fever dream shows. I remember them. I watched them. They were there. They were real. So, yes. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Good boy. Hey, ho, it's Sooty and Co. Everybody say hello, hello. There's Sooty and Sweep at Panda called Zoo, and little cousin Scampy too. Ba-dum-ba-dum. It's Sooty and Company. Ba-dum. Sooty and Company. Ba-dum. Oh God, childhood. Hey, Mr. Mystery, tell me your intention.